Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 21 of the Vuelta a España. This is the last day of racing in 2022 for all of the Grand Tours to be wrapped up here on this Sunday in Spain, finishing in Madrid. Now, today's race, they haven't marked down as 100 kilometers, but we know the real racing is about 55, 45 kilometers of real, pure sprint racing here in Madrid. A bunch of the Grand Tours have these kind of finishes with the celebrations at the beginning, and I love this. This is a great way to finish 3 weeks of racing. Now remember, for the riders, this is 3 weeks of racing, but really this is 2, 3, 4 months of preparation. And for certain riders, when we're talking about Remco Evenepoel, who's wearing the race leader's red jersey here at the Vuelta a España, this is a long time in the making. They probably started putting this together after his Giro d'Italia when he came back from that crash he had at Lombardy in 2020, and then of course came back to the Giro d'Italia last year and came up snake eyes there, where he had a strong performances through the individual time trials and sitting second on the general classification multiple times at the Giro d'Italia. And then of course he abandoned, I believe it was on stage 18, 17 being his last stage there at the Giro d'Italia. Now, since that time, you can be sure a rider like Remco Evenepoel and Quick-Step's Patrick Lefevre, the director sportif manager of Quick-Step, you can be sure they were targeting this year's Vuelta a España since the time he dropped out of the Giro d'Italia. So when you see the celebrations here, you really have to appreciate when you're sitting on the couch, because this is a long procession here of what the riders have had to go through to get to this last day of a Grand Tour. And it's that way for all the Grand Tours, the Giro, Tour de France, and Tour of Spain. So really appreciate the beginning parts of this race. And when the cameras come on, Alejandro Valverde and Vincenzo Nibali from Astana, they're going down the hallway there of riders up to the start line, getting celebrated for their long careers both riders have had. Alejandro Valverde, let me remind you guys, he's 42 years of age and he'll be the oldest rider ever to finish the Tour of Spain. So with this in mind, this is what it's all about. You got two big riders retiring, and you got some young guns coming in, because Remco Evenepoel's only 22 years of age. Ayuso, who's sitting third on the classification, he's only 19 years of age. So we got a switching of the guards happening here during this celebration period before the real racing begins. Now, we'll see as the riders come out, we see all the riders like Remco Evenepoel with his teammates up there taking shots. And of course, we see the general classifications come up and do shots. This is a perfect time for all of the PR work to be done. These pictures will last a lifetime. I still have mine floating around all over the house, here and there in different rooms. So this is a magical period. Now we start coming into the finishing of today's stage when the real racing is going to begin. They're going to let Alejandro Valverde slip off, and he's going to do one lap saluting all of the Spanish fans because he's won the Tour of Spain. He is the road world champion, and this rider is a legendary rider. He has performed basically from February all the way to October for most of his career, and is well deserved to get the spotlight to run off and do a victory lap here before he retires at the end of this 2022 season. Now, after he crosses the line, we see the peloton behind getting excited, and it's Raul Garcia, about 47 kilometers to go, that'll start the action here on this final circuit in Madrid. Now, the circuit's a difficult one, but should be the exact same one I did in 2013, with 3 hairpins, 180-degree turns. The first one's a little bit complicated. The second one is very hard and causes havoc amongst the peloton. The third one will come with just outside of 1K to go. Once they finish the U-turn there, it'll be full gas all the way to the sprint line with about a bend to the right at 300 meters to go. Now, there's plenty of time to make up space throughout this stage. It's very complicated to stay at the front and control the field all together at the front, because the speeds from the back can just float around everyone with ease. Now we'll see the Kern Farmer rider get wrapped up, and then we're going to go into the sprint points competition, and it's a bonus time. So Ineos are going to hop on the front because they're trying to get back that second for Carlos Rodriguez, who lost 2 places on yesterday's stage 20. Now Carlos Rodriguez's form isn't any better, and he'll come up snake eyes at the sprint line, but Enric Mas will come through to win the sprint, gain 3 seconds, and move up to third in the green points competition. Honestly, I don't know why he was sprinting, but he did, and that's what happened. Right after that, we're going to see 2 riders break away. Lucas Platt from Ineos is going up the road, and he's got some company in Johannesson from Intermarché. Now, these two riders will put on a display throughout the rest of today's stage, and they'll hold a gap of about 20 to 26 seconds, being their maximum time on today's stage. Now, just after those two riders got away, we're going to see a crash in the peloton, and it's going to be the American rider Lawson Craddock Bike Exchange that'll go down, and he'll mount back up. Looks like he's unhurt, and he'll get back up to the peloton. Two riders up front, they're starting to extend their gap. It's getting out to about 20-26 seconds for Plapp and for Johannesson. Behind, we see the sprinter teams chasing. It's Trek Segafredo, of course, because Mads Pedersen's up there in the green jersey, and he wants to win one more stage to get fourth here at the Vuelta a España. The other teams helping out. Bike Exchange is up there. Bora Hansgrohe will get on later, and Albacete de Koenig's on at the moment. Now, we start seeing the group up front. Those two guys, they're working well, like I said, drilling it, and then with their gap getting out to about 25 seconds, we start seeing as we start coming under 2 laps to go. Now we start seeing with Bora Hansgrohe on the front, that's 4 teams up there chasing. So they start reducing the gap up to the 2 riders in front. We go under with the bell lap. We see the bell ringing, the peloton's coming through, the 2 riders in front. They got about a 12-second gap, and it's Israel Premier Tech on the front. Premier Tech wants to bring this group back, and they got their own sprinter here at the Vuelta a España trying to win this last stage. Trek Segafredo's locked in the position, though, as we see, with 1 lap to go. Now they start bringing back the 2 riders, and they're almost back on their wheel with just about 3 kilometers to go, and that's the second super tight hairpin turn as the 2 riders up front are just about getting caught. When they come out of the U-turn, though, they're just not quite done yet as Lucas Plapp and Johannesson from Intermarché, they're going to start drilling it on the front. They got a little bit more effort left in the legs. They'll bomb down the slight descent. They'll go past the super fast right bend before we get on the main road that'll take you all the way up to the final hairpin turn at 1.1 kilometer to go. Now we look back behind the 2 riders up front. It's Bahrain Victorious on the front. They're drilling in 100%. We see the Bahrain Victorious rider pull off. Now we're going to see Jan Polans there from UAE Team Emirates, and they got their sprinter too. They're still in here with 8 riders starting the last stage here of the Vuelta a España. Jan Polans is pulling 100%. He'll pull off. We'll see one more Bahrain Victorious rider get on the front, and then once he's done, it's Brandon McNulty going full gas into the last hairpin turn. Brandon McNulty will pull off just before the hairpin turn starts proper. The 2 riders in front, Plapp and Johannesson, still got just a hair's width of a gap on the peloton behind, now being led by Albacete de Koenig on the front. Now we see him go through the U-turn, and guess what? It's UAE Team Emirates falling right behind Albacete de Koenig. It's Soler there, Ivo Oliveira's there. Of course, we got Milano, Sebastian Milano, the lead-out specialist for Pascal Ackermann, who's there too, sitting in 6th position. Now we see with those riders coming around the bend, we'll start to see the other sprinters that are still have a shot at winning here in stage 21. Because when we look further back, we see Danny Van Poppel there, John Degenkolb's there, but they're both solo. Ben Turner from Ineos is there, and Caden Groves from Bike Exchange is still locked on with a chance. Now the cameras move back forward to the 2 riders up front. We see Albacete de Koenig rider trying to close the gap, but guess what? When we went back to that final U-turn, I didn't see Tim Miller anywhere near in the picture, but Albacete de Koenig is still leading this train up front. He's latched on to Plapp back there and to the Intermarché rider, just as Johannesson's going to throw in one more big dig at about 850, 900 meters to go. Johannesson throws in a massive acceleration with everything he's got left in the legs, and the Albacete de Koenig rider, along with Johannesson's moving all the way to the right. We see UAE Team Emirates are still lined on the wheel with 4 riders being led by Soler. Now Johannesson's speed starts to drop. Soler knows he's got to go because it's about 750 meters to go to the line. Soler moves out and hits hard to the left. All 3 of his teammates lined up on his wheel. We look back. Trek Segafredo still in the picture because Alex Kirsch is there leading out Mads Pedersen in the green jersey. There's the other sprinters all locked in behind him as we see Soler up front. He's drilling it hard. Now we look at the next picture. 500 meters to go. We see the elbow from Soler. He's done working on the front. He did about 250, 300 meters on the front. Solid pulling from the Solerism at front. With that, he starts pulling off hard left, and then we see Ivo Oliveira start his sprint. He looks back just over his shoulder before he gets hard on the pedals. Make sure he's still got his sprinter guys on his wheel. Milano's there. Pascal Ackermann's there. Now just a couple feet further, we're going to show you the picture because there's a couple other sprinters in this mix with Mike Tunis in there. Ben Turner is there, and Caden Groves is still locked on with a shot to win, along with the two Trek Segafredo riders. Now Oliveira, he starts accelerating hard. He's got this race strung out. It's about 400 meters to go when Alex Kirsch, the main lead-out man for Mads Pedersen here at the Vuelta España, starts his acceleration coming up the left side. Now, I told you guys already, there's a right bend about 300 meters to go. It's a solid, not a turn, but a solid bend to the finish with 400 meters to go. That's when Alex Kirsch started his acceleration. He's running up on the UAE Team Emirates train, and he gets Mads Pedersen up to solid position, up to about second wheel, even back there with Pascal Ackermann. Ivo Oliveira is doing a solid turn on the front, and then with about 200 meters to go, Milano starts his sprint for Pascal Ackermann. Now Milano's going full gas. Alex Kirsch has finished his work, and then shortly after that, Mads Pedersen will start his acceleration about 150 meters to go. We look at the back behind Milano is Pascal Ackermann, their #1 sprinter here for UAE Team Emirates, and he's still playing the waiting game, or does he have the legs? I don't know. He's not moving from the back. Up front with about 100 meters, 75 meters to go, it's Milano. He starts drifting over to the left. Real smooth, though, not aggressive enough where you could get DQ'd here on stage 21 of the Vuelta España. Mads Pedersen still increasing his speed, but at 25 meters to go, it's still Sebastian Milano from UAE Team Emirates that's in the front. Now, all of a sudden, we look back to his left side. It's Mads Pedersen from Trek Segafredo. He's pulling up, but not far enough. And then we look to the right side there of Milano. It's his sprinter Pascal Ackermann, who just can't get a run-up going. He started to move his front wheel just a little bit past the back, but not by much. And then it's a bike throw at the line for Sebastian Milano, the main lead-out man for UAE Team Emirates, Pascal Ackermann, who wins the stage. Mads Pedersen, while wearing the green points jersey, gets second on the stage, and Pascal Ackermann rounds out the podium for UAE Team Emirates on today's spectacular finish. Now, UAE Team Emirates, when I break down this sprint, man, this was a beautiful sprint. And when we break it down between Mads Pedersen and their pure sprinter, Pascal Ackermann, he just didn't have the legs. And that's why we see Sebastian Milano, who does have the legs, win. But how did he beat Mads Pedersen? We got to back the film up all the way to about that 850, 900 meters to go when we saw Johannesson from Intermarché, who had been in the break all day long with Plapp, when he threw in that big acceleration, that one more acceleration of energy left in his legs, and did probably about 75, maybe 100 meters on the front. That's what really changed the game for UAE Team Emirates, because at that point in time, Soler could just follow that move and get that more 75 meters of drafting before he took off with his own acceleration at about 750, 800 meters to go. And that is the difference on today's stage, because Pascal Ackermann didn't have the speed to beat Mads Pedersen, who's wearing the green points jersey here. And if we look at Sebastian Milano, who normally is the lead-out guy, so normally he'd start his sprint about 300 meters to go. Instead, he was able to start it at 200, so that 75 meters back there from Intermarché, Johannesson pulling changed the whole game and allowed Sebastian Milano to get one big sprint victory here at the Vuelta España. Now, we'll see his interview, and his eyes are super wide. He's got that expression like, I don't know how this happened. Sebastian Milano, I do. You're one of the best in the business. Certainly as a lead-out man, you are right up there with Michael Morkov from Quick-Step. But aside from that, I've seen your speed throughout all these stages. At the Giro earlier in years, and then of course here at the Vuelta España, you've been fantastic. And always I've asked myself while sitting on the couch, this kid just starts needing to do his own sprint sometimes if his own sprinter isn't going to deliver. Now he got that opportunity today because of having such a strong Marc Soler, UAE Team Emirates, who was 100% playing the team game today, 100%. Brandon McNulty was up there. Jan Polanc was up there. Ivo Oliveira was something amazing. And then you throw in that extra 50, 75 meters of pulling from Johannesson from Intermarché. And that's the difference, because now all of a sudden we see Sebastian Milano taking the front at about 200, maybe 225 if I stretched it. And that's enough to get him to the front when he's got to beat a Mads Pedersen, who's on form and fantastic form here at the Vuelta España. Now, if you watch the same commentators that I watched, They said, well, maybe Mads Pedersen just ran out of gas. Mads Pedersen was on great form, and this is the type of racing that Mads Pedersen can win sprints like this, but he's not a pure sprinter. He is more ideal for the stages like we saw him win here at the Vuelta a España, all three slightly uphill and stuff, or a very hard men's classic race. Can he win a sprint? Absolutely. Would it had surprised me if he won today? No, but he's not the pure flat sprinter that Milano can be and possibly is now here after stage 21 of the Vuelta a España. Now, we look further back, we see all the UAE team members, guys celebrating as they're crossing the line. Soler does a big celebration. Well-deserved, Soler. You are fantastic today. And then we start looking at Remco Evenepoel because he's 22 years of age, and when he crosses the line today, he knows he has the Vuelta a España 2022 wrapped up for Belgium, for Quick-Step, for his family, and of course for his fiancée, who he meets right after the line with a big kiss. We see him celebrating just after that big kiss with his teammates, and they got his bike up in the air, and that's a big-time celebration moment right here for a young kid of 22 years of age, or a kid of 42 years of age, because I remember when I won, it felt the same for me too. Now we start looking at the podium. Alejandro Valverde, he jumps up there, and they're celebrating his last season of racing up here with multiple jerseys. I guess he's wearing the golden fleece. Then he'll pull that off. He'll be in the Road World Championships that he won a few years back. He'll pull that off. He'll be on his Movistar jersey that he's been part of this team for decades. And so Alejandro Valverde really leaves this year's Vuelta a España in a fantastic style. Remember, they have Enric Mas second on the general classification that I saw Valverde riding for throughout this 3 weeks. And Valverde finishing solid up here, and wait to go out for your last Grand Tour of your career here, Valverde. Now, Vincenzo Nibali, he's gonna finish off here at his last Grand Tour too. They don't have him up at the podium, but amazing celebration for the legendary Italian rider who's won 4 Grand Tours throughout his career, one Vuelta, one Tour de France, 2014, and I think that 2014 Tour de France could have been the greatest Tour de France that never happened, because we saw it was Alberto Contador and Chris Froome who crashed out early in that year. But Vincenzo Nibali, I still think, would have won that 2014 Tour de France. He also won 2 Giro d'Italias, of course. So, again, it's a changing of the guards at the end of this stage 21 of the Vuelta a España. Now, other guys up there, Mads Pedersen, of course, wins the race. Green jersey here for the sprint competition. How about Richard Carapaz, Ineos, taking the KOM jersey along with 3 stage victories here for Team Ineos. And then, of course, Carlos Rodriguez finishing 7th on the general classification. Now, for Team Ineos, they had a solid Vuelta a España here. We think about some of the bad stuff that happened at the Vuelta a España. Of course, when we're thinking Primoz Roglic crashing out in the stage, that had to be a devastating effect. But even Jumbo-Visma had a very good Vuelta a España when you look at the results of Primoz Roglic winning stage 4, the team time trial of stage 1. And, of course, the switching of the jerseys throughout the whole team during that first week of this year's Vuelta a España. And then Primoz Roglic putting in the only real stage where he dominated the red jersey. And we saw where Remco Evenepoel was put under deep pressure, but then came back and recovered and lost only about 58 seconds on that stage. So when we dissect the whole Vuelta a España, it's been an amazing 3 weeks of racing, and we got tons of talent moving forward. Now, when we're talking about the white jersey, of course, Remco Evenepoel won white. And when we're talking about the podium, it's Remco Evenepoel first, Mas second, Ayuso, the 19-year-old UAE Team Emirates rider, rounding out the podium. And then, of course, 5th on the general classification, Almeida, another rider from UAE Team Emirates. So they have a solid Tour of Spain here in 2020 because Soler won an individual stage 2. Plus, they took the team classification at the end of this stage 21 here, the Vuelta a España. Now, other things, most combative jersey they gave to Soler, who well deserved it. I don't know if I agree with all of the tactics and the amount of energy he spent, especially on yesterday's stage 20, but he certainly deserved the most combative jersey for UAE Team Emirates. Now, I saw one interview with Machine Fernandez, the director sportif for UAE Team Emirates, and he talked about how happy he was about his team, especially Milano winning this last stage here. His young rider, Ayuso, he spoke about a little bit, Almeida up there, and about all his team in general, how well they worked at this year's Vuelta a España. At times, I saw they had sometimes 3 different teams. Yesterday's stage was a little bit overdone from Marc Soler. But today's race, and then at different points and times throughout this Vuelta a España, you would see them really gel. Now, Machine said that this is going to be his last race, and I don't know exactly what he meant about that, if he's retiring or not, but you see him all teared up and sad at the interview there, but happy at the same point in time, because that's what sports does, right? Makes you happy, makes you sad, makes you proud, makes you low, makes you have bad days and good days. That's why we love sports, because there's always something around the corner to change the emotions you're feeling within yourself. Now, at the end of the day, when we're rounding everything out, we see it's Remco Evenepoel doing the last interview on the show today, and he gives me exactly what I want. In the interview, he says he wants to win the Tour de France and he wants to win the Giro d'Italia because he wants to win all three. Thank you, Remco Evenepoel. Now we know he wants to win the Tour de France. Let the drama begin, because sitting up here on the podium of the Butterfly Effect, I certainly agree. Remco Evenepoel with this form is on par with the best in the world. He does lack a few other tactical things in terms of being able to float through the peloton in the right position at the right time when it's mass chaos like we see Tadej Pogacar can do. But pure strength, time trialing, climbing, all that stuff Remco Evenepoel has. And guys, he's only 22 years of age. Everything else he can still work on and get better at. But all I know at this point in time with that interview, he gave me exactly what I wanted here up on the Butterfly Effect, and that is that he wants to win the Tour de France. Thank you, Remco Evenepoel. Spectacular 2022 Vuelta a España from Remco Evenepoel. I loved every minute of it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We got fantastic racing, and the young kids are just coming on the scene. I'll see you on the next edition of the Butterfly Effect somewhere, because we still got some good classic races left here in 2022, along with the World Championships. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.